Most people assume whey protein is some kind of high-tech lab invention. But here is the truth. Whey is the liquid left over when cheese is made. That thin, watery layer floating on top of your yogurt right now, that is raw whey. For a long time, dairy farms just dumped it. Then bodybuilders in the 70s and 80s figured out it was packed with protein, supplement companies caught on, and what used to be waste became one of the most popular products in the fitness industry. It absorbs fast, peaks in your bloodstream within about 60 to 90 minutes, and it has the highest amount of leucine of any protein source. Leucine is the main trigger that tells your muscles to start rebuilding. But whey has a twin, and most people have no idea they are completely different things. That twin is casein, and here is what blows most people's minds. Casein makes up around 80% of the protein in milk, so every glass of milk you have ever had was mostly casein, not whey. Same cow, same milk, completely different behavior inside your body. When casein hits your stomach acid, it clumps into a thick gel and literally slows itself down. Instead of absorbing in under 2 hours like whey, casein takes 6 to 8 hours to fully digest. That slow release is exactly why bodybuilders eat cottage cheese before bed, because while you sleep and go hours without eating, casein keeps a steady stream of amino acids flowing to your muscles. Now, we leave dairy entirely. Egg white protein gets overlooked, and that is a mistake. For decades, people feared eggs because of cholesterol, but egg white protein has zero fat, zero cholesterol, and one of the highest quality scores of any protein on Earth. Here is the wild part. Egg white is 90% water. All that protein is packed into the remaining 10%. It is completely lactose-free, absorbs at a moderate speed, and works well at any time of day. Clean, complete, and consistently underrated. The next one has a reputation problem it does not deserve. Soy protein has been accused of lowering testosterone in men for years, and most research shows that fear is largely overblown at normal intake levels. Soybeans have been cultivated in East Asia for thousands of years and eventually spread through trade routes to become one of the biggest crops in the Americas. What makes soy genuinely impressive is that it is one of the only plants on Earth that contains all 9 essential amino acids, making it a complete protein. That is extremely rare in the plant world. The testosterone fear is mostly noise. Pea protein sounds like something you eat when you are on a diet and miserable, but it has more in common with whey than most people realize. Dried peas get ground into flour, the starch and fiber get separated out, and what is left behind is surprisingly protein-dense powder. It is not quite complete because it is low in methionine, but it is close, and it quietly became the backbone of the vegan fitness world. You will find it in plant-based powders, in meat alternatives like Beyond Meat, and in protein bars everywhere. Pea protein is almost complete, but missing one piece, and the next protein is exactly the other half of that puzzle. Rice protein. Nobody thinks of rice as a protein source, and that is fair, because rice is basically the definition of a carb food. But brown rice protein, when processed correctly, can actually match whey for muscle growth. The protein hides inside the bran layer, which is the outer coating that gets stripped away when white rice is made. So every time someone switches from brown to white rice, they are literally throwing the protein away. On its own, rice protein is incomplete, but blend it with pea protein and you get a full amino acid profile that holds up well against whey. The next one is complete all on its own, and it comes from a place most people would never expect. Beef protein isolate sounds powerful, and the marketing absolutely leans into that. But here is what they do not put on the label. It is often made from the parts of the cow that are not sold as meat. Hides, tendons, connective tissue, right, all broken down using the same basic science used to make gelatin. It works, it is dairy-free, but it is expensive. It has a strong beefy flavor that needs heavy masking, and for most people, just eating actual beef gives you the same benefits for less money. Beef protein is real, but arguably unnecessary. The next one is the opposite, genuinely useful, but almost always misused. Collagen is in coffee, gummies, skincare, wellness shots, and here is what most people selling it will not tell you. Collagen is not a muscle-building protein. Putting it in your post-workout shake is like putting motor oil in a salad dressing. It does not belong there. The reason it cannot build muscle is that it is missing tryptophan, one of the essential amino acids, making it technically incomplete. What it does do well is support joint health, tendon strength, skin elasticity, and bone density with consistent use. Real wellness, just completely misplaced when people use it as a primary protein source. Hemp protein makes people nervous because of where it comes from, and this part always makes me laugh because industrial hemp has virtually no psychoactive compounds in it. You cannot get high from hemp protein powder. What makes hemp unusual as a protein source is that the seeds contain both protein and healthy fats in the same tiny package, which is rare for something sold as a protein supplement. It has a slightly nutty, earthy flavor and shows up in health food stores and plant-based blends. The next one is misunderstood because of its price. Spirulina is not a plant. It is a blue-green algae, one of the oldest living organisms on Earth. And gram for gram, it contains more protein than steak. Records suggest Aztec civilizations were harvesting it from lakes in Central America centuries ago. NASA studied it as a potential food source for long-duration space travel. Picture shallow ponds turned a deep, vivid blue-green, with workers skimming the surface to harvest it. Spirulina grows in tight, spiraling coils, which is exactly where the name comes from. Ancient, alien, and expensive. But the next one makes spirulina look completely normal. Insect protein. Before you scroll away, consider this. An estimated 2 billion people around the world already eat insects regularly. This is not a future food. It is a present food that Western culture simply has not caught up to yet. Crickets are roughly 60 to 65% protein by dry weight and require a fraction of the land and water that cattle farming needs. Cricket flour bars, mealworm snacks, and insect protein powders are already available in specialty stores and online. Efficient, ancient, and surprisingly nutritious. The next one is none of those things, but it is hiding in almost everything you eat. Milk protein concentrate is probably the protein you consume most without ever knowing it. It shows up in processed cheese, protein bars, infant formula, and dozens of packaged foods, but almost nobody talks about it by name. What makes it interesting is that it contains both whey and casein together in their natural ratio. It is essentially whole milk with the fat removed and the protein concentrated. Flip over a protein bar wrapper and check the ingredient label. There is a good chance it is in there. Quinoa gets called a grain constantly, but it is technically a seed, and unlike almost every other plant-based food, it is a complete protein all on its own. Cultivated in the Andes Mountains for thousands of years, it stayed largely regional until it exploded globally in the 2000s as health food culture grew. Here is the detail most people skip. Quinoa seeds are coated in a natural bitter compound that acts as the plant's own defense system, which is why rinsing before cooking actually matters. Mycoprotein is made from fungus. Not mushrooms exactly, but a naturally occurring fungus first discovered in soil in England in the 1960s. The company Quorn has been selling products made from it since the 1980s, and it is the most successful meat alternative in the UK. Yet most people who eat it have no idea they are eating fungus. The fungus gets fed glucose inside large fermentation tanks, multiplies rapidly, and produces a fibrous texture that naturally mimics the structure of meat. Fungus grown in tanks, already on supermarket shelves. The final one on this list is even stranger, and it might be the future of protein entirely. Scientists have figured out how to make whey protein, identical in structure to what comes from a cow without using a single cow. They give microorganisms the genetic instructions to produce whey protein, and those microorganisms become tiny protein factories inside fermentation tanks. It is already in some ice cream and protein products on shelves in the US, and the end product is indistinguishable from conventional whey in taste and nutrition. And if a microorganism in a tank can produce perfect whey protein without a single cow involved, what does that mean for every other protein on this list?